The numbers. They're just brutal coming out of eastern Ukraine right now, really telling a story about the pressure on the front line.
Absolutely. Russian forces seem to have gained a foothold in Pokrovsk. That's a strategic hub.
And the number that just jumps out, 8-1. President Zelensky says Moscow soldiers outnumber Ukraine's 8-1 right there.
8-1. I mean, that's not just a challenge. That's pushing towards an operational breaking point, isn't it?
Oh, so what does that actually mean for the troops?
It means they just can't rotate. They can't rest. You know, it's sheer exhaustion against what feels like a never-ending wave of attacks.
Welcome to the military point. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We'd love to know.
So today, we're really digging into this mix of what's happening tactically right now and the sort of longer-term diplomatic and financial struggles.
And Pokrovsk is central to all of this. It's not just another town on the map.
No, definitely not. It's a vital supply node. Think of it like the main pipeline, pushing resources, reinforcements, everything to the Eastern Front.
A pipeline Russia has been trying to, well, choke off for 2 years now.
Exactly. And if they capture Pokrovsk, that moves Moscow a huge step closer to their goal of occupying all of Donetsk.
Let's talk about the fight itself. Right now, Zelensky called it difficult. Fierce fighting everywhere.
Difficult might be understating it. We're seeing reports, intelligence reports, confirming Russian sabotage groups are actually inside the town.
Inside already.
Yeah. And what's really striking is the detail. Drone imagery confirmed about 200 Russian infantry already operating inside Pokrovsk. It just shows how porous the lines have become, how close the fighting is.
Wow. That close quarters fighting tells you they're really committed. But the sheer number of attacks?
Yeah.
That shows the scale.
Oh, absolutely. Captain Hryhorij Shapoval, he's the spokesperson for Ukraine's East Operational Group. He gave a key metric. 79 attacks repelled near Pokrovsk. Just since Monday.
79 in just a few days.
79. And if you zoom out, that's almost a third of all assaults across the entire front line, the whole 1,500 kilometers.
Yep. So it's a massive concentration of force there.
Complete concentration. They're leveraging that 8-1 advantage, trying to force a breakthrough right now.
And it's not just sheer numbers, right? Shapoval mentioned they've brought in huge amounts of equipment, too, using armored vehicles in a specific way.
That's a really critical point. They're using armored vehicles, yes, but not just to attack directly. They're using them to cover their infantry, like mobile shields.
Ah, okay. Because drones make exposed infantry so vulnerable.
Precisely. In this war, being out in the open is incredibly dangerous. So by using armor, even older vehicles, as shields, they make it much harder for Ukrainian drones and defenses to stop those foot soldiers. It's how they sustain the push. It makes them hard to stop, as Shapoval put it.
Which brings us to that whole debate. Encirclement. The cauldron.
Russia's chief of general staff, General Gerasimov, immediately claimed Ukrainian troops were totally surrounded.
Which Ukraine, including Zelensky, flatly denied. So is it just propaganda? Or is the very idea of a cauldron changing in modern war?
Well, I think we're seeing the terminology evolve. It raises a big question. If you can't physically close the circle anymore, can technology, like drones, do the same job?
How so?
We got this incredible insight from a Ukrainian soldier, Artem Pribolnov, from the 155th Brigade. He basically says, forget the traditional cauldron idea.
The idea of physically being trapped, roads cut off.
Exactly. He explained that, in the past, even if mostly surrounded, you might sneak supplies or people through paths at night. But now, drones.
Drones change everything.
They control every access point, he says. Every road, every movement is watched from above. So moving becomes extremely dangerous, even if there isn't like a physical ring of enemy tanks there.
Okay, so the pressure feels like encirclement, even if it isn't technically a closed loop. The choke points are eyes in the sky, not just troops on the ground.
That's it. It's more of a virtual siege, an aerial one. And that's probably why Russia might claim encirclement. The effect on the ground feels like it.
And the weather isn't helping Ukraine either, is it?
No, that's compounding things. Foggy, rainy conditions. It makes it much harder for Kyiv's troops to use their drones effectively. The very tool that creates this virtual pressure.
So if Ukrainian drones are grounded, those armor-shielded Russian infantry can push forward more easily.
Exactly. It creates this window of opportunity for the attackers. It really highlights the high cost, the immense effort needed just to shift the front line even a few meters. It's brutal, weather-dependent fighting.
Which brings us from the immediate tactics to the bigger picture, the strategic implications.
Yeah, the human cost is horrific, obviously. But the geopolitical stakes, if Pokrovsk falls, are huge.
What happens then if Russia takes it? What's the domino effect we should be watching?
Well, first, it gets Moscow much closer to controlling all of Donetsk, which they've stated as a goal. But operationally, it exposes Ukraine's main defensive line, what's called the fortress belt.
The fortress belt. This isn't just a line on a map, right?
No, not at all. It's a series of heavily fortified positions, defensive systems built up since 2014. Really dug in.
And Pokrovsk is the key to unlocking that belt.
It's the gateway, essentially.
Yeah.
Taking Pokrovsk puts 4 key cities, Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Kostiantynivka, and Druskivka, within much easier striking distance for Russia.
Those are major industrial and military hubs for Ukraine in the east.
Absolutely critical anchors. If Pokrovsk falls, the supply routes into that fortress belt become severely threatened. It makes holding those fortified towns much, much harder.
It's just incredible. Russia's invasion is nearly in its 5th year. Moscow holds about 20% of Ukraine, and yet the fighting is still this intense, this fluid.
And that level of fighting, that attrition we see in places like Pokrovsk,
Yeah.
it requires massive, sustained financial backing.
Which leads us straight to the other battlefront, the financial one.
Yes, President Zelensky's been very clear. To keep fighting effectively for, say, another 2 or 3 years, Ukraine needs stable, guaranteed, long-term financial help from European allies.
But getting that stability, well, there have been major roadblocks, specifically around using those frozen Russian assets, right? About 140 billion worth.
Exactly. And this is where it gets legally very tricky. It's not as simple as just taking the money. Belgium blocked the proposal at a recent EU summit.
Why? Was it political opposition?
Not really opposition to helping Ukraine, actually. It was more about the really complex legal issues around central bank sovereignty, the precedent it would set.
Can you break that down a bit? Why is it so hard to just use the frozen funds?
Well, the core issue is that these assets belong to the Russian central bank. Seizing sovereign assets of another nation, even an aggressor nation, it sets off huge alarm bells in international law and finance.
So countries like Belgium, holding a lot of this money, worry about the fallout.
They worry that if they break that barrier, it could undermine trust in them as safe places to hold foreign capital in the future. It's less about the morality of this specific situation and more about, the potential damage to the stability of the whole global financial system, a huge legal risk.
That makes sense. A massive legal precedent, even if the moral case seems clear to many. So the proposal is on hold until December, potentially.
That's the plan. Revisit it in December. But until then, Ukraine faces this significant financial uncertainty.
Meanwhile, the U.S. is trying other angles.
Yeah.
Sanctions, right, trying to cut Moscow's income.
Yep. President Trump recently put sanctions on 2 huge Russian oil companies, Lukoil and Rosneft, trying to squeeze the revenue that funds that 8-to-1 advantage.
But sanctions only really bite if the big buyers stop buying, which is why the U.S. pointedly asked China and Turkey to stop purchasing Russian oil.
Exactly. Which shifts the focus squarely onto Asia and onto diplomacy. President Zelensky has explicitly mentioned the upcoming meeting between President Trump and China's Xi Jinping this Thursday. He's pinning hopes on that.
What's he hoping for? A complete turnaround from China?
Probably not a total U-turn, but a strategic shift. The thinking seems to be if Trump's sanctions are tough and the pressure is high enough, maybe China decides it's just safer economically or politically to dial back its support for Russia.
And if China, a massive customer for Russian oil, starts buying less?
The impact on Moscow's budget could be huge.
Yeah.
And very quick,
Oh.
which directly impacts their ability to sustain these massive troop concentrations, like the one hammering Pokrovsk.
So it all connects back, the desperate fight in the mud around Pokrovsk, the virtual cauldron created by drones. It's all tied to these high-level diplomatic talks and financial maneuvers happening thousands of miles away.
It's absolutely intertwined. If the money doesn't flow to Ukraine and the sanctions don't significantly dent Russia's income, that 8-to-1 ratio we started with becomes very hard to change.
It's just a stunning contrast. You have this high-tech, weather-dependent battle on the ground, meter by meter, and at the same time, this complex, precedent-setting fight over frozen assets and oil imports.
And the really big question, maybe for you listening, is how long can that necessary financial stability for Ukraine actually be guaranteed, given all these legal hurdles and political pressures we're seeing around the world?
That intersection of frontline combat and high finance really feels like it holds the key to where this conflict goes next. We've definitely seen that financial battlefield heating up, even as the physical front lines face this incredible strain.
The pressure points are everywhere. And they're all connected, deeply connected.
You've been listening to The Military Point. Stay sharp, stay informed, and we'll catch you next time.